pour one out for the Power Rangers Lightning Collection, but raise a glass to the awesome prices that you can find these at all the discount stores and like overstock stores. I'm going to open up this Beast Morpher's Yellow Ranger and see what it's all about. And before I tear into the package, I'm just going to give you a once over of the packaging. You can see how much I paid for it, the entire $6. Looks like this in particular is Zoe Reeves. I don't know anything about New Bond or Power Rangers, but I like the design of this thing. And for $6, I'm sure there's some cool accessories that I'm going to love about this. And there we have our figure. There's also an accessories pouch. I'll get that as well. And there we have some of the accessories there. We got some power effects, a sword of a kind, and our Power Rangers helmet. Just want to give you an overview of the figure. On this hand right here is the Power Rangers Morpher Power Ranger suit. There is a texture on here that looks very leathery. I don't think it comes across all that extremely heavy, but it's very subtle, and if you look closely, you can notice it. The other thing that they were doing with this is something extremely risky, and that's using a lot of metallic paints. That silver stripe on the side of the uniform here, you can see has a very nice reflective quality. Like I feared though, on the inside of the arm, you can already see that paint rubbing off to the base yellow plastic. Now, I'm not too worried about it because most of my toys sit on a shelf. They don't get played with. But if somebody were to actually play with this thing, I don't think that silver paint would last all that long. The joints on this figure feel really good. They're double jointed at both the elbows and the knees, and they're not too stiff, but yet they stick in place. This is a perfect blend right out of the box for what you'd want to see in an action figure. The base head sculpt on this doesn't allow for much range of motion, so I think we're going to get the Power Ranger helmet on there and see if that changes things. There we've just swapped the head. It's really easy to do. Pop it off, pop this one back on. Unfortunately, though, it didn't seem to change much of the directionality of the head up or down. I also noticed that I'm fidgeting with this harness quite a bit. When I'm moving the arms, this thing slides around quite a bit. It's almost like the secondary belts in a lot of the G.I. Joe classified figures. It looks cool, but it just kind of gets in the way. Those are some of my initial impressions of this figure here, and one of the things that I like is trying new things. I don't think that leather pattern comes across very strong, but it does come across, and when you take a close look at it, it does look nice, especially in places on the side right here. You can see the folds of the uniform that normally would just be like a spandex. This, you can tell, has like a texture to it. It has like a thick quality to it. The other thing that I like about this figure is all the joints out of the box worked really well. There's even some good backwards butterfly motion right there that I couldn't typically get with a G.I. Joe figure. That is a great range of motion. And I'm always one to appreciate paint applications, and in this case, it's the silver paint that looks really cool as a contrast to that leather. Accessory-wise, there aren't too many, but the ones that are included are very nice. You have the sword here with the blast effect. It does a really nice job of hanging onto the sword and gripping it. The Morpher on the wrist right here has just a few fine bits of detail there that make it pop off the wrist. It's not just a solid color that implies that it's a Morpher. You can actually see how it would work. But if we talk about some of that paint, and we talk about some of those applications, we can already see the weak points of this figure. For starters, right on the forearm, you saw me unbox this thing. This is how it came out. There is some clear damage and scuffing to that silver paint, which tells me that this is going to be a weak point of the figure. So heavy use of this, constant getting out, putting back in, falling off the shelf, might just cause a few more scuffs to the silver paint. As for the few things I do not necessarily like about this figure, one is the harness. It just kind of gets in the way, it slips around, and when you're doing dynamic posing with the shoulders and arms, it just is a little thing to fidget with. And you can get those dynamic arms thanks to the butterfly joints, but when it comes to the head, you are very limited. When it comes to looking up or down, you have to crane the whole body back or the whole body forward to get the eyesight right. So from here, let's take a little closer look at the yellow Beast Morpher, and I'll give you my final thoughts afterwards. And here we have our Beast Morpher Yellow Ranger up close. One of the things I really like about it is the blast effect and how well that ties onto the sword. It grips really well on the blade, and it doesn't seem like it's warping it at all. So this is something that's really cool. Definitely, I'm going to hang on to this. The blade itself here, there is some paint application. There's this metallic blue that looks really well. There's also this lighter sky blue. It does give the accessory some nice detail to contrast with the yellow. There is this karate chop style hand, and there's also the other open hand that goes along with the closed fist on the Morpher hand. This is a very poseable figure. The one thing that I'm starting to notice is that the top half is quite a bit loose. It's hard to keep this figure upright without slouching over like that. Other thing too is with this skirt, there's going to be some difficulty keeping the balance. Because there isn't that whole range of motion, I can see how the head, the helmet, the skirt is all going to keep this figure in a delicate balance of sort. I know that I'm going to have to get some stands out for this one, and unfortunately I can't use just the normal flat stands because the pegs on the bottom of the feet are so shallow, it's not going to socket in properly, unlike some of the other figures that I have, like from G.I. Joe Classified, or even, let's just pull this Marvel Legends guy over here. Yeah, that's a much deeper socket for some flat stands. This is going to have to be a clamp that goes around her waist. Here's the unmasked face sculpt. It looks fine. There is some paint blemishes right underneath one of the eyes right here. Overall, though, with the way that the hair is so inflexible, it's not going to give me any better range of motion, and it's going to actually make this not seem very Power Ranger-like. The helmet gives it that Super Sentai, that Power Rangers vibe, whereas the head just maybe makes me think more of a generic superhero. And that's maybe because I haven't seen any of the Power Rangers Beast Morpher stuff. However, if you were coming into this blind, you could use the normal human head there, and this could go along with a bunch of other action figure lines, like a G.I. Joe, maybe a Transformer, something like that. If you don't have this helmet, which tips that it's a Power Ranger thing, this could be a very versatile figure. Very poseable so far from what I've noticed, and I'm looking forward to getting some cool shots with this, and then giving you my overall thoughts. At length about the Power Rangers Lightning Collection and what that means for it to go on hiatus. And actually all of Power Rangers if we're talking about it, because it's been a staple for about 3 decades, which is incredible when you think about it, and the fact that we don't have any new Power Rangers content is like almost unthinkable, but here we are. Let's circle it back to the yellow Beast Morpher here. It's a really poseable figure for everything but the head, which is unfortunate because when you have a superhero squad that's all about fighting and flexibility and doing cool martial arts, having those limited parts really shows when everything else about it does a really good job at showing off that articulation. Since this video is coming out when I found this figure in one of those discount stores, I think the $6 that I paid for it was plenty. It was great. It's a great figure for $6, but if you're looking for this aftermarket or looking for it and it's more than $6, I would heavily consider finding a different figure that might be a little better. But honestly, if this figure was over $10, I probably would leave it on store shelves. That's everything I have for you about the yellow Beast Morpher. If you like action figures, if you like Nerf blasters, or if you just like collecting things, be sure to follow along and watch the next video. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.